What's up, guys? It's Nick with Parks Detailing and Parks Car Care, and today we're going to be going over part 2 of the RWB project. I'll put a link in the description to part 1 where we cover washing and chemical decontamination, getting the car prepped for what we're going to be doing today. So today I will show you guys how I clay the car. In part 1 we used Purify in a pretty specific way to get the car prepped, and I'll show you guys how I get it clayed, and then I also laid out all of the other products I'll be using for the detail. I'm not going to go into super specific detail on all of these. That would be pretty time consuming, and we also have some other videos where I've covered some of these products, so to avoid redundancy, I'm just going to give you guys a brief overview real quick of all the products I'm going to use, and then really dive into the claying, a little bit of the polishing, and the application of Angelwax Enigma ceramic wax. So this is the one that I really wanted to focus on today. It's a really cool product. I've used it in the past, and I felt that it was a perfect fit for this project. So after doing decontamination outside, pulled the car in, we went ahead and dried the whole car because I knew I wasn't going to be getting to claying that day. And typically what I would do is while the car's still wet, I would go ahead and clay it. But blew dry the car off because we didn't want it sitting with water on it overnight. And I noticed pretty quickly after drying it that the paint is very clean. I don't know if you can pick it up on the mic, but it is squeaky clean. So Mike Phillips, his old videos were a big influence to me back in the day when I first got into detailing. He talks about the plastic baggie test, where you can take a plastic bag, put it over your hand, and inspect the paint, feel it to see if there's any contamination. So I still do that to this day sometimes, and this car is very contamination free, which was pretty surprising to me because they drove it all the way from Florida. We're here in North Carolina, and just the nature of the car, I just assumed with all those highway miles on it, it would have more contamination than it does, but the Purify and the Baltic did a very good job. And after determining if it needs to be clayed or not, the second thing I did was inspect the paint. So if you want to come over here, I can show you guys the paint. I was really surprised. This is actually pretty unusual. This doesn't really happen very often at all. And in part 1, I talked about the goals for this project. And the owner really just wants the car to look good. He has a lot of cars, so ceramic coatings and PPF are not really a common thing for him to do. And the goal is just to get the car looking nice and get it protected. We're going to be using Enigma Wax, which will give them about 6 to 12 months protection, give or take, depending on the driving conditions. So typically with his cars in the past, I've done like a one-step correction. Some of them I've gone as far as wet sanding. Some of them are like a hybrid one step with a couple of areas of compounding. But this car, if I had to guess, was probably under the hands of a detailer at some point, or the paint shop that did the paint job did a really good job of finishing it down. With the rise of popularity in dual action polishers, I see more body shops, at least the higher end ones, that are starting to understand how to finish cars down better. I'd say that's the exception to the rule. For the most part, when cars leave a body shop, they need a lot of detail and finishing work done. But I'm not really sure. I'm not sure if it was the body shop that left it like this, or if a detailer got their hands on it, but the car is actually in really good shape. So I inspected it with a scan grip when I picked it up and noticed, the paint looks pretty good, but you really don't know until you wash it, decontaminate it, pull it inside under inspection lighting like this to really see the condition of the paint. And like I said, this is super unusual here. This is very uncommon, but on this project, I'm actually only going to be polishing a few different areas, some isolated areas that need it, and then going to be putting the protection on. So you can see there's a few areas. I don't know how hard it is to focus with the camera, but like there's some areas that have like some swirls, but not anything really bad. Some super faint water spotting in a couple of areas, but for what the owner wants and for the goals for this project, it really would not be necessary to polish this entire car. It's definitely had some attention in the past from someone. So what I'm going to be doing is using Koch Chemie Fine Cut F601 and a orange Lake Country HDO foam pad to kind of hit these isolated areas. Another thing that's kind of unusual is the claying aspect of this car. So because I'm not going to be polishing the entire car, I'm not going to clay the entire car, because anytime you clay, even with the clay towel, which does a great job of minimizing marring, you're still marring the paint. It would just be kind of a little bit hack, in my opinion, to clay the car and then not do some sort of level of polishing, because then the car is leaving with marring that you've installed onto the paint, and I just don't like that. So I'm gonna only clay the areas that I'm gonna be polishing. The rest of the car, as I mentioned, the Purify did a really good job. I mean, the paint is like dead clean. There's really no rough areas. The only reason I'm gonna clay the areas that I'm polishing is just to be extra thorough, make sure there's no contamination, because if there is contamination in there that I'm not feeling with my hands, then it's gonna get caught in the polishing pad and create some issues. So the way that I like to clay is after doing Purify, really the way I did it in part 1 is ideal. That's the way that I like to use Purify. I have found that using it in that manner produces results like this, where the car is just extremely clean when it comes in. So what I'll do after that, like say I was polishing the whole entire car, I would go over the whole car with Gyeon Clay Lube and the Wax It Aero clay cloth. I find that this combination, this is a very slick product, and this clay towel does a very good job of removing contamination but not leaving excessive marring. So I'll go over the whole entire car with this, and then I'll grab something like Gyeon Clay Mild or one of the 2 Koch Chemie clays and go over any isolated areas that maybe the clay cloth didn't get 100%. So that way, it's like most things in detailing, I'm using the least aggressive method possible to get the goal done. I'm not jumping straight to, let's clay the whole entire car with a aggressive clay bar, because then you're gonna really be doing some polishing. So like I mentioned, this is unusual to not be claying a whole entire car. It's typically, it'll be what I just described, where I clay the whole car with the clay towel, and then I go by and hit a few of the areas that are a little bit worse with a clay bar, and then I'll polish. But today, just gonna clay cloth these couple of areas that I'm gonna be polishing, and then getting straight to the wax. So for the rest of the car, I'll walk you guys through the products that I pulled out for this. Like I mentioned, fine cut from Koch Chemie. This is not their finest polish, but a very, very fine abrasive. I find it's great for stuff like this, where there's just some minor swirls, nothing crazy, light water spotting. Same with this pad, it pairs really well with it. Zero finish towels. If you've watched any of my videos, you know I use these probably more than any other microfiber towel. Scan grip, sun match, handheld, also pretty standard for paint correction. Be using Angelwax Stripped-Ease. This is their panel wipe. It is a very strong panel wipe. So if you're working on a car that has like softer jet black paint, GM Jet Black is the notorious paint system in the detailing industry. If you're a professional, you probably know what I'm talking about. Don't really recommend Stripped-Ease on these softer paints. It can cause a little bit of swelling, and it can sometimes scratch if it's a really soft paint. That's just been my experience. So it's a very strong solvent, and I don't think it has as much lubricity as some of the other panel wipes we have, like NV Clarity, Gyeon Prep, and the Koch Chemie panel wipe. For the glass, I'm going to be using H2Go. This is a staple for me over the years. If I'm not putting a ceramic coating on the glass, this is what I'm going to be using. KLIN Zero Finish applicators. These are white. These were sent to me by Scott with Detail Division. He is the US KLIN distributor, but we are fortunate enough to be a reseller of these awesome products. If you go on our site, you'll see that we have the green ones. I think the white was like a special edition, or maybe these are coming in the future, I'm not sure. But if you go on the site and you see that they're not white, that is okay. The green ones are the same thing, just different color. This is the KLIN Clean Towel. These come as a 10-pack. That's what I'll be using to wipe off the H2Go. Typically, anytime you wipe off something like H2Go or a ceramic coating, the towel after that can really only be used for like scrubbing a tire, wiping off tire dressing, polishing exhaust, things like that. So I'll keep a hamper in the shop just for coating removal towels or H2Go removal towels, and try to get a second use out of them before I just throw them away. This is just water, so I'll show you guys a little bit later in the video how I'm going to be using this along with these towels to help with the Enigma Corona application. Koch Polestar, this is their all-purpose interior cleaner. You can use it on textile, leather, Alcantara, which this car has quite a bit of suede in it. So when I was trying to select what cleaner I wanted for the interior, rather than having to get like a waterless wash diluted for the Alcantara and then a leather cleaner for the leather, Polestar is a great all-in-one option. I believe I have this at 1:9, so it's very concentrated, works great on everything. Also, if you've watched any of our other videos, I've got the Gyeon leather brush, Carscope brush here for the cleaning the leather. Vegan textile brush, I like this just to either, if you're someone who likes to stripe the carpets, it works great for that, or just when I'm vacuuming out carpets, I like to brush them just to help like kind of dislodge some of the dirt. KLIN bubble towels, also a standard for me for interiors, which I'll typically use the white one for leather so that I know how well I'm cleaning the leather. If you keep quartering the towel every time you wipe, it should be by the end of you cleaning that leather surface, whether it's a seat, steering wheel, whatever, you should not be seeing any dirt. So the white towel helps give you an indication visually of how clean the surface is. S-Tech Interior, this is their quick detailer for interiors. Smells really, really good. Safe for all interior surfaces. Pretty straightforward. It's a quick detailer. So after I clean the leather, clean the carpets, I'll wipe down the dash and all the other surfaces with S-Tech Interior using another bubble towel. Koch glass cleaner, we sell, I think, 3 or 4 different glass cleaners. They all work really, really well. You know, I will say I've noticed that like Gyeon glass, S-Tech glass tend to work really well in direct sunlight. I've not tested Koch yet in direct sunlight, but it's glass cleaner. They all work really well to an extent, but I'll test this one in direct sunlight as well. It's just happens that here I don't really do a lot of that, so sometimes at home I'll test products outside to see how they do for mobile guys or people at home that are not in indoor conditions all the time. KLIN Glass Shine HD. HD stands for heavy duty, so they're starting to make more of the HD series towels, which is awesome. I know they're working on a Zero Finish HD, which I'm very excited for. But it's basically just an upgrade of the Glass Shine. They still sell the standard Glass Shine. I just find that the HD, it's a little bit thicker and the two sides are distinctly different. One has a little more of a mini twisted loop as to where the other side is like very tight, not like a raised nap to it. So I like these better for the outside of the car, especially like larger vehicles, trucks, SUVs. This is a really good towel for cleaning glass. I still like the original Glass Shine for interiors. So areas like the front of the windshield down here where it meets the dash, I find that that thinner towel is easier to get into places that this thicker one can't, or like side mirrors, for example. But I do like the thicker one because as you can see when you quarter it, it's pretty rigid, like it stands up pretty well, so it's easy to keep it flat, which is super important for cleaning glass to keep the towel flat. Last thing for the tires, gonna be using S-Tech 08 tar and adhesive to prep the tire. So even after scrubbing tires outside with a dedicated tire cleaner like Gyeon tire cleaner, I think is what we used on this, it's still good to wipe it down with a tar remover. It's just gonna help get any final like grease and road grime off the tire to prep for your tire dressing. So I'll typically take a Carscope wheel and tire towel. I know Henry, the owner of Carscope, he uses these in a couple different ways. Like he'll use it to dry wheels and also to level tire dressing. The way I like to use it is it's kind of like my dedicated tire towel. So don't really use it to dry wheels. I kind of like the KLIN Korea Drying Duo Mini for that. But I will use this to prep the tire with tar and adhesive. And then I'll flip it over to a clean side, typically the twisted loop side, to level off my tire dressing. So I'm using Carscope ink and the Carscope tire brush. And that is it. That's all the products we're gonna be using for this. So I'm gonna get to polishing these few areas that need to be polished, and then I'll show you guys how I apply Angelwax Enigma Wax. I have clayed and polished the areas that I wanted to address, I'm gonna go ahead and begin the Enigma Wax application. You're gonna take your Stripped-Ease, directly spray it onto the panel. For now, I'm just gonna do this quarter panel flare, but obviously, if you're doing the whole car, you just wanna go ahead and wipe down the whole car first. You don't need to panel wipe each section as you go. And what this product is gonna do is remove any polishing oils, any clay lubricant, polymers, anything like that before your protection goes on to make sure that it has the best possible bond to the paint. So I'll typically spray the panel down and then I'll spray some into the towel and go back over the panel a second time just to be thorough. So the way you apply Enigma Wax is sort of like any other wax. There's a couple of nuances to it, but it's a super durable product. I've put it on a daily driver of my own before and gotten like 9 months out of it. So very resilient. The biggest difference I'd say in application is with pretty much every wax we sell actually, you could wax the whole entire car and then go around and start to wipe it off. With Enigma, I recommend waxing the panel that you're working on and then removing it. So go ahead, get my applicator. Got a purple wax for a purple car, pretty fitting. Don't need a lot. Like with any wax, you really don't need a lot. People tend to go way too heavy-handed with waxes. And with this wax specifically, that'll cause streaking, which is not fun to deal with. So I put just enough into the applicator, kind of rub it around to get a nice little even layer there. And you can go in circles, you can move in straight lines, it really doesn't matter. As far as areas like these little rivets and the rubber, I just try to get close to them, but not run over it with the applicator, because then you're going to be taking a toothpick and cleaning wax out of cracks later. So. And as far as like my OCD and, you know, part of me, it bothers me that I'm not going over the rivet because you think of like protection and even coverage, but the truth is when I wipe it off, I'm gonna be going over the rivets, so you're kind of spreading it around. And then for the first wash of this car, you can either do it during the application of the wax. I typically do it after the first wash. You're gonna use Enigma QED, their quick detailer. So with that quick detailer, you don't have to avoid all these little crevices and stuff. You're just gonna spray it and go over the whole car. So if it's gonna bother you in your mind thinking, oh, I don't have as much protection around these gaskets and seals and stuff, you can either QD it right away or you can do it at the first wash, first time you wash the car after putting on your wax. So I'm noticing the applicator starting to run out of wax. You can see a good bit of it's gotten onto the panel. So I'm just gonna reapply, but hopefully I'm getting the message across. Thinner is better. Don't try to think of it in your mind as I'm building up a thicker layer of wax on the paint. That's not necessary, and it's also going to create more of a headache as far as wiping it off. All right, so now that I've applied to the whole panel, what I'll do is take water and spray some into a towel. Get it a little bit damp. And I got this advice from Tommy. He's the US Angelwax representative, using a damp towel to help wipe it off. Helps eliminate streaking. Makes the wipe off a little bit easier. And as far as maximizing durability, if you are looking to get more out of it, I recommend doing 2 thin layers, not 1 really thick layer. What you'll notice if you put on 1 really thick layer, or what I've noticed in the past, is that it will ghost on you, is the term I like to use, where you wipe it off and you look and you say, okay, I got it all off. And then you go eat lunch or come back 20 minutes later, do the interior, and you'll see where there's like areas of it that it's almost come back. It's like ghosting on you. So if you want more protection, just do 1 layer, wait a couple of hours, and then do a second thin layer on top of it. But I will say, just 1 layer has done extremely well for me with this product. So now that I've wiped it with the damp towel, I'll take a plush KLIN towel and do 1 final wipe. So that is it. That is how you apply Enigma wax. Hope this was helpful for you guys. Like I said, you can go ahead and put the QED on immediately, or you can do it at the first wash. I typically like to do it at the first wash to top it up. I'm gonna go ahead and finish the rest of the car. That's it for today's video. Hope you guys learned a lot. Thank you for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment or send us a message if you have any questions or you want to see anything specifically covered in future content. Thank you for watching.